Hello and welcome. If you are looking for the How to Lead High Impact Focus Groups with Students Virtually workshop, you're in the right place. Welcome again. I'm Jen, and I will introduce myself and my co-presenter Keely here more in just a moment. And we are coming to you from Colorado State University Online, and we are so excited to be here at COLTT. So before we dive in, I do want to mention that Keely will post a link to a worksheet in the chat in just a few slides. And you can, once you open this document up, you can download it and then be able to type right on the document. Or if you just want to reference it and have a pen and paper handy for the activities, that works great too. The worksheet does contain a little bit of content from our presentation today, so it's worth checking out. And we do have an action-packed 20 minutes for you. So if you've got any questions as we go, we certainly invite you to put them in the chat. And we just ask, if you wouldn't mind, put your email address in with your question. That way, if we run short on time and we don't get to address anything, we can certainly follow back up with you after the presentation. So as I mentioned, my name is Jen Spering, and I'm the manager of outreach here at Colorado State University Online. I've been with CSU Online for about 4.5 years. And in my role, I have the great pleasure of overseeing and leading out our student ambassador and student outreach teams. And I'm also a proud online RAM myself. I am finishing up my marketing management grad certificate and hopeful to start our MBA program this spring. And with that, I'll let Keely introduce herself.
All right, hi everybody, my name is Keely and I'm just about to be starting my last semester at CSU as a human development major. I've been a student ambassador at CSU Online for about a year now, and I've been helping get these focus groups up and running at the university.
Great. So we've got a few goals for today's workshop. We hope that you walk away with kind of a knowledge of some of the fundamentals of hosting a virtual focus group, a sense of curiosity about maybe some of the benefits for your particular organization in using focus groups. And then really, we hope you gain some confidence in your own ability to run focus groups at your institutions. So a little bit of context here. We built our CSU Online Student Ambassador team last fall, and one of the primary goals of our ambassador group was to better understand and represent the diverse student voice of our CSU Online students. We were very fortunate when we had Keely join our team. She has a background and a passion and interest in conducting research. And with her coming to our team, it really inspired us to consider running focus groups with our current online students virtually. So it makes sense why we chose an online and a virtual format where CSU Online, our students come to us from all over the world. But with the pandemic, obviously, we've all had to adapt to communicating and connecting in new formats. So I think that for all of you, I would encourage, whether you're online or in person with your programs and offerings, an online focus group can really be a beneficial way to go. And in the last year, we have definitely learned a whole lot about best practices and ways to be successful in running focus groups. And Keely developed a playbook for us that has really simplified and made the whole process of running a virtual focus group really quite easy. So today we want to share with you some of the fundamentals of that playbook. I'll go through a quick overview. Keely will touch on some of the logistics and planning details. We'll circle back and I'll talk about facilitating the actual focus group. And then Keely will bring us home with analyzing and sharing out the findings. So focus groups are obviously an organized way to gather candid feedback from a group of participants. In our focus groups, we have had 2 moderators, Keely and myself, and generally between 3 to 8 participants. We found that when you have a smaller group, you're able to have some more in-depth conversations and go into topics a bit more deeply. When you have a larger group and more participants, you get a variety of feedback and input, and some different ideas can be sparked with more participants. So the goal of a focus group is, of course, to learn more about a particular topic or topics that you'd like to investigate. For example, the very first focus groups that we held, we wanted to keep high level and pretty broad. So we examined our general CSU online student experience. In particular, we wanted to gauge student satisfaction around things like student support, peer and faculty connections, and see how folks felt about their online coursework. And I have to admit, we really didn't know what to expect going into our first focus groups. And genuinely, we were blown away by what we found, the outcomes, and how rich the feedback and the input from our students in this format was for us. So that got us really excited and inspired to continue on with hosting additional focus groups and getting more detailed as we went. And this brings us very quickly to our first activity. So Keely, I can't see the chat, but if you could give me a thumbs up if you've posted the link. Okay.
Yep, I just posted that. So yeah, anybody can feel free to download it so you can type along or whatever's easiest for you.
Perfect. Yeah. And if anyone's having a hard time accessing that or opening it, I'll just let you know that the focus group topic ideas is what we're going to be brainstorming now. So essentially, we're going to give you just a moment or two to think about some ideas or topics that you'd really like to have student or stakeholder feedback on. We've included a few examples on the slide that you see. And so go ahead and write down your thoughts if you'd like. And then we would love it if you could maybe post a topic idea that you have for your organization in the chat. And if we get some ideas in there, Keely can call them out as well. So go ahead and whenever you're comfortable, go ahead and get started with that. And then we'll circle back here in just a few moments.
All right, so just in the interest of time, we're gonna keep moving forward with talking about some of the logistics of focus groups. And then we'll have a couple more activities still. So if you want, you can still feel free to share any ideas that you might have come up with for focus groups in the chat. We'll keep our eyes open for those. But as far as some of our logistics go for planning a focus group, we tend to utilize anything that's free and easily available. So we use Google Forms and Zoom primarily to help organize our focus groups. But we can really be tailored to whatever systems your institution uses. We mostly use Google Forms for things like tracking signups, demographic information, consent forms, feedback surveys, and then we use Zoom to conduct the actual focus group itself. And this is an example of kind of what our communication looks like with students from beginning to end. This, the flow chart's also on that worksheet if you want to look at it. I think it's on the second page of it. It might be a little easier to read, but pretty much we start out with an announcement to everybody. Any potential participants, that'll include a link to the sign-up sheet on Google Forms. And then once we get that sign up form back, we'll send them a consent form, just kind of talking about some confidentiality and ethics procedures. That's on Google Forms again. And then once we get a consent form back, we send them another email confirming their spot in the focus group and also send them a link to the Zoom meeting. And we always will send out a reminder the day before as well. Things get busy, lives get crazy, and so we just want to make sure that we send out a reminder and include time zones always, because we have students who are all over the world. And then once the focus group actually happens, we will send a thank you email along with a feedback survey, and that's on Google Forms as well. And we also usually send out an incentive and just confirm that they're getting some kind of a gift as a thank you for their time. And we also will pre-write all of our email templates just to make things super quick and easy. We do have kind of a standard operating procedures if anybody's interested in seeing that from us, which has got some email templates set up already. And this is just kind of a quick peek of what our Google Forms look like. We try and kind of brand it, I guess, with the CSU logo and everything, and make it very clear as well who's running the focus group. Students don't necessarily know us in the marketing department, so just making it clear to the students who's running it. And then once all of that kind of communication and logistical things are done, it's almost time to run the focus group. Considering who the moderators are going to be and ensuring that you have confidentiality and ethics policies in place is very important as well before you actually run the focus group. So the moderator plays an important role in kind of setting the stage of the mood for the whole focus group. So the moderator should hopefully be as neutral of a figure as possible, not be in a position of power over the students, or hopefully not know any of the students in the focus group. And it's also important that the moderator remain as neutral as possible, paying attention to things like verbal and nonverbal cues. A verbal cue could be something like saying that somebody's response is excellent. If that gets said, then the other responses might get skewed unintentionally. And same with nonverbal cues, things like nodding or facial expressions can also unintentionally influence participants. And so there's just kind of a balance to be had between being warm and inviting and also neutral and unbiased. And there are lots of trainings out there for focus group moderating. As far as ethics and confidentiality go, we are sure to address that very thoroughly in the consent form that we send out. But we also like to reiterate the policies at the beginning of our focus groups. We want to make sure that we can get the most honest feedback that we can. And so it's important for the participants to know that any video or audio recordings will be deleted as soon as the transcription's done, so that their words can't be tied back to them. And the same thing goes with the transcriptions. We make sure to remove any identifiers like name or age from the transcripts. And we also don't really discuss specific individuals' responses. Unless the person that we're talking to is involved in the focus group. But the idea of the focus group is that you're sharing more general findings. You're not really saying like, oh, one specific person said this. It's kind of more of a general findings when you talk with stakeholders. And sometimes an institution will require something like that you go through the institutional review board for focus groups. So if that's the case, then your confidentiality and ethics policies will be affected by that.
Okay, great. So now considering that you've communicated with your participants, you have selected and trained your moderators as needed, it's time to get down to facilitating your focus group. So the beginning of a focus group should always include a moderator and moderator role introduction, a brief reminder for all participants about what the topic is that'll be discussed, what they can expect during the focus group, a reminder of the time frame, and it's really important to honor that time frame if it's a 45-minute focus group or an hour. And then it's helpful too to share out how you would like to use the findings, to give folks some idea of what the usefulness of their participation will be. And we do like to also cover a few ground rules after the introductions. This includes things like emphasizing that we really want candid, honest responses. There are no right or wrong, things that they could say. We're just looking for candidness and honesty, and remind them of the confidentiality and the consent information that they agreed to, just briefly. And then it's helpful to cover some etiquette things too. For instance, that one person speaks at a time, to listen respectfully, even if they may disagree with what someone else says. And also very helpful to just set the stage that the moderator may need to step in and interrupt the discussion in the interest of time to keep the conversation flowing, or if there's one or two people that really seem to be dominating the focus group, to then be able to pivot into maybe hearing some other voices. Saying that up front makes having to say it as a moderator during the focus group far less awkward. And then when it gets down to the actual questions, we always like to start with a simple icebreaker to get everyone just more comfortable expressing or sharing their voice in the room. And what we usually do is just ask for them to share their name, where they're joining from, and their program of study at CSU Online. And then from there, we encourage you to keep the question format interesting and varied. So open-ended questions will always lead to an opportunity for more information. So it's great to keep that in mind when framing and styling your questions. But there are some fun ways that you can actually mix close-ended questions and open-ended questions to keep things interesting for everybody. One fun technique that we use is having participants use a 5-finger scale rating. And so this could look like something where we ask on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is, let's say, least satisfied, 5 is the most satisfied. How satisfied are you when it comes to the lecture format in your courses, or your experience with the application process? And then everyone will hold up their ranking. And if you've got a couple, let's say, folks that held up 1 and 2s, you start there and say, okay, great. So it looks like we've got a few people that gave us a 1 and a 2. I'd love to hear more about why you gave that particular ranking for this question, and then call on them. And then you can do the same thing with the folks that gave a 4 or a 5. And this helps kind of keep things interesting in terms of gauging where people are at, maybe in different places with their measurement or satisfaction. And then also we found too, for some questions, it's helpful to give people a chance to maybe write down some thoughts before calling on them. For different learning styles and personalities, you may want to ask a question and then let people know you'll have 30 seconds, 45 seconds to just jot down some quick ideas. And then we're going to go round robin and we want to hear from everybody. It's always helpful to kind of let people know what to expect. And this brings us to activity number 2. So you can reference your worksheet, or if you're not looking at the worksheet, this time around, we're asking you to select one of those focus group ideas that you came up with from activity 1, or think of something new, and then come up with just a few questions that you could ask that would help you gain insight into your particular area of interest. So for example, if you're looking for more information about course formats, you might want to include some questions about lecture length or content. So again, same style as before. We'll give you a couple moments here to brainstorm some questions. We've got some ideas here for you on the screen as well. And then just like the first time, if you'd like to share out any of your thoughts in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, and Jen, we've actually just got 1 minute left. So I'm thinking maybe we'll give you guys a moment still. Please feel free to be filling out this activity. I'm gonna go over the last slide real quick. I think we're gonna have to cut the last activity. Sound good, Jen?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
and everyone, yeah, you can see the worksheet for that activity. But yeah, go ahead, Kaylee.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so Jen, if you would just flip to the next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, so just real quick, once the focus group has happened, we will send out email, we'll send out a gift incentive. We've got like a little tumbler there that we've usually sent out, along with feedback survey. We make sure to do a full transcription. It just makes it really easy to answer questions if any stakeholders do have any questions, and try and identify key themes that, especially anything that comes up from multiple people multiple times, those are the really important things that you want to be able to share out with others. And yeah, that's pretty much, I think, all I have time to say. We have so much to say, and we will hopefully share out our standard operating procedures with you guys.
Yes, and our email addresses are on the slide here. So if you'd like to reach out to us, please do. We'd be happy to send out our materials and the playbook and standard operating procedure. And if there were any questions in the chat, we will be sure to get back to you as well. And thanks again for participating. Thank you, Keely, and thank you, Ariel.